This is by far the most difficult spin-off film I've ever had to talk about, but even then I don't think it's impossible. So it has been a while since I last did one of these, but essentially what I'm trying to do is talk about the potential spin-off films that Sony should do, and in essence talk about each in different Spider-like related characters such as 2099, Noir, Spider-Gwen, etc. And ultimately all these spin-off films will lead up directly into a Spider-Verse movie. And based on the last poll, everyone wants me to talk about the Superior Spider-Man, seeing as he decimated the last poll by a landslide. The reason why this video is a little overdue is purely because it is incredibly difficult to think of a film for Superior Spider-Man. But in the end, I have an idea, and first and foremost, I would make the Superior Spider-Man have his own franchise and have a trilogy. Because ultimately, there's a lot to really tell when it comes down to Otto Octavius and his character. And in previous videos that I have been doing in relation to other Spider-Man spin-off films, I have avoided using Peter Parker purely because Sony seems to be wanting to avoid using Peter Parker considering the MCU. And having two completely different Spider-Men at once would confuse the audience, but in this case you really do need to rely on Peter Parker. But seeing as the Superior Spider-Man story arc is a very recent storyline within the mythos of Spider-Man, you could easily get away with recasting Spider-Man with someone who is more older, more experienced. However, what I would suggest is have an actor who kinda looks like an older Tom Holland, so that if you really wanted to, you could have it connect to the MCU. And have the Superior Spider-Man trilogy be a potential future for the MCU. And as for the Otto Octavius situation, in the original storyline for the Superior Spider-Man, Otto Octavius is actually dying, and his solution to this is cheat death and swap his subconscious with Peter Parker. And since Otto does look very deformed in this, you won't have to worry about the connections between him and the MCU's Dr. Octavius if they're going to use him in the MCU. So for the first film in this trilogy, I would have it be an all-round origin and explain Otto Octavius as a character and lead him into the path of becoming the Superior Spider-Man. And in order to relate to Otto Octavius, we have to see everything through his point of view, and that Spider-Man should be the antagonist. And the way I would open with this is have Otto Octavius explain his origin the Incredible Hulk style, and then lead to a battle between Spider-Man and Otto Octavius. And Otto's true motivation is purely on survival, and that he is trying to look for a way to cheat death. So his solution is pretty much the same in the comics, where he switches his subconscious with Peter Parker, and have Peter Parker be trapped in Otto Octavius' dying body. And now as Spider-Man, Otto Octavius decides to continue some of his work, which are usually questionable. And I would have Otto Octavius, being Spider-Man, have his revenge on someone who wronged him in the past, which would further allow Otto Octavius to explain his upbringing as well as why he is like this. And that way we as the viewers could sympathise with Otto Octavius. So for the climax of the first film, I would have Otto Octavius trying to get his revenge on an old colleague who had wronged him in the past, while Peter Parker, who is now trapped in the dying body of Otto Octavius, track down the Superior Spider-Man and try and swap bodies again. However, he fails, and ultimately Peter Parker dies inside Otto Octavius' body, much like in the comics. And before Peter Parker could die, he tells Otto Octavius that with great power comes great responsibility, which then has Otto Octavius open his eyes and try and become the Superior Spider-Man. And honestly, I think the origin story for Otto Octavius and the Superior Spider-Man would be perfect for the first film in that trilogy. Because not only does it establish Otto Octavius and what he stands for, but we also get to understand as to how he became the Superior Spider-Man and have his little story arc go full circle. Now for the second film, I would loosely base this within the storyline called No Escape. And this is the storyline within Superior Spider-Man in which the supervillain Alistair Smythe is about to get executed for his crimes, only for his miniature Spider Slayers to form a new armor for him and pretty much go on a killing spree from within the prison. But as the Superior Spider-Man is trying to track down Alistair Smythe, who is the Spider Slayer, he decides to enhance several supervillains and enhance them with some Spider Slayer technology. Now the reason why I think Alistair Smythe would be a good foil for Otto Octavius, aka the Superior Spider-Man, is because in many ways Alistair Smythe is very similar to Otto Octavius. They're both mad scientists who tend to use enhanced technology, and both are also very determined in claiming that they are actually superior than Spider-Man. But what makes Alistair Smythe a good mirror in particular is the fact that in some retrospects, Alistair Smythe is exactly how Dr. Octopus used to be. And so to a degree, it seems like the superior Spider-Man is actually facing his mirror self, and is facing his old demons head on. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Superior Spider-Man is actually trying to be a hero for once, and he's trying so hard not to kill. Because after what Peter Parker told him that with great power comes great responsibility, Otto Octavius is actually motivated in becoming a good Spider-Man. But unlike Peter Parker, Otto Octavius is more reliant on technology as well as some brutality, but he'll never go too far into killing people. Which is a bit of a departure from the comics, but I feel like if you have Otto Octavius trying so hard not to kill anyone, I think it would make his character all the more interesting. So in the final battle, I would have Alistair Smythe have a plan in which would be impossible for Spider-Man to do unless he decides to kill Alistair Smythe himself. And after Alistair Smythe taunting him, Otto Octavius decides to show his true colours and reveal himself to Alistair Smythe before doing the killing blow and keep his identity a secret before Alistair Smythe would even dare to blab his true identity. But as a result, not many people actually trust Spider-Man after taking a life, and that everyone's perceptions of Spider-Man has changed. And having Spider-Man kill an enemy is so big of a news that it actually gains the attention of the Goblin King, who this entire time has been hidden under the shadows and has been plotting for a big attack on New York, planting the seeds for the final film. And for the final revelation for the second film, I would reveal that Peter Parker is still actually inside the body somewhere. And just after witnessing Otto Octavius taking someone's life, has Peter convinced that he has to take back his body and stop Otto Octavius before killing any more lives, as Otto Octavius is slowly going back to his old ways. And although Otto Octavius is trying to be Spider-Man still, he's actually cutting loose and is starting to kill people again, just so that he could eliminate crime. And so for the final film in the Superior Spider-Man trilogy, I would have it be based within the Goblin Nation storyline, because this is the storyline in which Otto Octavius' arc actually goes full circle. Now, although the Green Goblin has been used in previous Spider-Man films in the past, they actually use the Green Goblin in a completely different way, as the Green Goblin is orchestrating a massive attack on New York. But what's even more interesting about this is the fact that the Green Goblin actually does have an army of other goblins at his disposal. He has the Goblin Knight, as well as Menace, and even the newly recruited Monster. But not only that, he also has Goblin Thugs, as well as Goblin Gremlins, and even the Spider Slayers do actually make a reappearance, who are now under the Green Goblin's control. Now, what makes the Green Goblin all the more interesting in this storyline is the fact that he personally knows who Peter Parker is, and he knows for a fact that the Superior Spider-Man isn't exactly Peter Parker. And considering the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus have joined forces in the past, he could actually put two and two together. And what makes the dynamic between Otto Octavius and the Green Goblin all the more interesting is the fact that they've always been seen as rivals. And there's always been a debate on who is actually the bigger villain between the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus. However, it's pretty evident that the Green Goblin is all the more of a personal threat to Peter Parker. But since the Green Goblin has already discovered that Otto Octavius is actually the Superior Spider-Man, he has actually anticipated this for a very long time, and so he has plans in which could score Otto Octavius. And since the Green Goblin knew that Otto Octavius has been Spider-Man for a very long time, the Green Goblin's plans has been perfectly orchestrated so that Otto Octavius doesn't stand a chance in beating him, as the Green Goblin actually does kidnap his love interest, who is Anna Marie. And this is where Peter Parker comes in, because Otto Octavius finally accepts the fact that he is not the Superior Spider-Man, and that in order to save the love of his life, he needs to sacrifice himself and allow Peter Parker to have his body back. Because ultimately the Green Goblin did not anticipate that Peter Parker would come back by any stretch. And so if Peter Parker comes back as Spider-Man, then he does have a fitting chance. And after that, Peter Parker does actually come back as Spider-Man and ultimately has the final battle against the Green Goblin, who wasn't prepared for Peter Parker to come back. And as the end of the last film, Peter Parker pays tribute to Otto Octavius, because in the end, Otto Octavius isn't actually a bad guy. And in the end, Otto Octavius actually does redeem himself. And this would be the perfect send-off for Otto Octavius. Now the reason why I think a Superior Spider-Man trilogy would work is purely because it is a very interesting spin in having the main villain, Otto Octavius, actually taken over the body of Spider-Man. And plus there are barely any supervillain films. And sure, we have Black Adam and Venom coming up, but why not have the Superior Spider-Man as well? And although the Superior Spider-Man has some haters, I personally think a Superior Spider-Man would be a very cool storyline to adapt onto the big screen, especially if it's a what if. Now each time when I get to talk about one of these, I keep on making polls on which Spider character I should talk about next, and talk about how I would tackle these characters and why I think they deserve their own spin-off films. And for the final two, we have Mayday Parker as Spider-Girl, and also Peter Parker as the Spider-Ham. And I think it's easy to predict on who's next. And whoever wins the poll this time will be the next character I'll be talking about. So would you want to see a Superior Spider-Man film, and do you like any of my ideas for the Superior Spider-Man trilogy? Comment below and share some thoughts. And as always, thank you guys for watching this video, please like and subscribe, take care and have a good one.